A police dog bolts across a live runway, ignoring every command. Seconds later, he stops at something buried beneath the snow, and what happens next leaves the entire control tower frozen in place. All right, here's the full story. But real quick, drop if you have ever had a dog in the comments and hit that subscribe button, because what we're about to reveal, you'll want to be the first to know. The first rays of dawn glimmered against the frost-laced tarmac of Lansing Regional Airfield, a small airport in Michigan often overlooked on most national maps. It wasn't big like Chicago O'Hare or Detroit Metro, but it handled its fair share of cargo flights, chartered jets, and the occasional VIP movement. The early morning shift buzzed with sleepy technicians, tug drivers sipping stale coffee, and the low hum of radar chatter. Routine, predictable. Just the way Sergeant Aaron Dwyer liked it. Beside him, tethered and still as a statue, sat Echo, a 6-year-old German Shepherd trained in explosive detection and rapid search response. Unlike some of the younger dogs in the unit, Echo had an uncanny ability to read situations, something Dwyer could never quantify, only respect. He wasn't the loudest barker, didn't lunge at shadows, but when Echo focused, everyone around him did too. It was supposed to be a standard perimeter check. No high-alert cargo, no dignitaries flying in. Just routine patrols along the secured fence lines and monitoring of the runway intersections. The most exciting part of the morning had been a ground crew member's lunch bag being accidentally flagged by a thermal camera. Cheese sandwich. As they moved past Hangar 12, the cold air slicing under Dwyer's collar, Echo suddenly stiffened. Not a bark, not a growl, just an unmistakable shift, ears locked forward, chest rigid, eyes tracking something in the distance. Dwyer followed his gaze instinctively. "What is it, boy?" Then it happened, without a warning growl or signal. Echo bolted. He jerked free from the leash, his nails skidding across the icy pavement, muscles coiled in perfect control. He was running, but not like a dog chasing a squirrel. No zigzags, no distraction. He was target locked. "Echo," Dwyer called out, already in motion, heart pounding. The dog dashed across runway 22, narrowly avoiding a taxiing fuel truck. The air traffic control tower crackled into life. "Ground patrol, what's that K9 doing on active runway?" Dwyer pressed the comm on his shoulder. "Sergeant Dwyer, K9 Echo unit broke formation. Unknown reason. I'm in pursuit." Echo didn't slow. He wasn't panicked. His body language said this wasn't a mistake. It was urgent. By the time Dwyer rounded the far end of the service lane, Echo had already crossed the secondary apron and darted behind an old out-of-use signal tower, a skeletal structure no longer linked to modern systems, but left standing for structural reference. It was rarely patrolled anymore, bordered by chain link and forgotten sandbags from years back. Echo halted there, his body angled toward the base of the tower, tail stiff, head low. Dwyer reached him, breath misting in the freezing air. "What is it, buddy?" Echo let out a single short bark, not panicked, not aggressive. Then, without hesitation, he lowered his body and began digging at a cluster of discolored snow near the tower's foundation. Not just pawing, scraping with intent. Dwyer knelt. Something metallic glinted beneath the surface. He brushed aside the ice-crusted snow to find a small latch embedded in the ground, a service hatch. He stood and radioed in, "Dispatch, this is Patrol Alpha. We may have an unlisted maintenance entry beneath Signal Tower 3, requesting immediate backup and maintenance verification." "Copy that, Patrol Alpha. Maintenance records show no access hatch in that sector. Ground security en route." Dwyer's pulse climbed. Echo had now backed away, ears pinned. He was watching the hatch like it might move, not barking, not whining, just watching. It took less than 3 minutes for Airport Security Officer Linda Perez to arrive in a white utility SUV. She stepped out, scanning the scene. "What the hell is this?" she muttered as Dwyer pointed out the latch. Together, they pried it open. The hatch groaned, revealing a rusted spiral ladder descending into darkness. "No way this is on the blueprints," she said, eyes narrowing. Echo didn't wait for them to decide. He stepped forward and descended the ladder like he'd done it 100 times, one careful paw at a time. "You're kidding me," Perez whispered. "That dog just volunteered for recon." Dwyer dropped in next. The air shifted immediately, cold, damp, stale. They descended nearly 10 feet before reaching solid concrete. A narrow hallway extended ahead, lit only by the beam of Dwyer's flashlight. The walls were old but reinforced, with thick insulation panels suggesting past military or surveillance use. Echo moved ahead at a calculated pace, nose low, tail stiff. Then he stopped again, ears pivoting. A sound, barely audible even to Dwyer. Thump, scrape, then silence. Perez whispered, "Did you hear that?" They pushed ahead, Echo leading. The corridor curved left and opened into a room the size of a cargo bay, long abandoned but filled with discarded electronics, military crates, and a cot, recently used. Perez's breath caught. Someone's been living down here. Dwyer examined a set of boot prints, still wet with melting snow. Echo, meanwhile, sniffed near a steel crate and sat, posture tense. "I need bomb squad," Dwyer muttered into the radio. As he did, a figure darted from the shadows behind a stack of boxes, skinny, fast, face masked in grime. Echo lunged, closing the distance in seconds, tackling the figure to the ground with practiced precision. No excessive force, just control. The man screamed, not in pain but panic. "Please wait, don't shoot." Perez had her taser trained. Dwyer had already secured the scene. They yanked back the hood. A boy, barely 17, eyes wild with fear. "He's not alone," Dwyer muttered, scanning the crates again. Then Echo barked again, this time sharp, urgent. They turned. A second form. A child, small, unconscious, lying on a cot wrapped in a fleece blanket, face pale, breathing shallow. "Jesus," Perez whispered. Is that a girl?" Dwyer moved forward. "She's burning up, fevered." Echo whined softly, stepping closer, nudging the child with his nose. The boy, still restrained, gasped. "My sister, she's sick. I didn't know where else to take her. Please, don't take her away." In less than 10 minutes, the basement was crowded with personnel. Medics whisked the girl away. The boy, identified later as Cameron Blake, a runaway from a foster group home, was taken into custody but not immediately charged. Echo watched from the base of the ladder, ears pricked but calm. His job was done for now, but the questions had just begun. Back above ground, the control tower had been monitoring the entire situation. Live thermal scans, radio chatter, Echo's unexpected dash across the active runway. None of it had been protocol. A senior ATC officer stared at the thermal footage again, this time highlighting a disturbing fact. There had been 3 heat signatures in the tunnel system the night before. Only 2 had been found today. 3 signatures. 2 people found. That was the chilling realization hanging over the emergency briefing inside Lansing Regional Security Headquarters. The still frames from the overnight thermal scans were pinned on the display board, each one a time-stamped screenshot from a patrol drone that looped the perimeter at 3-hour intervals. The most damning frame was captured at 2:43 a.m., 3 distinct body heat signatures within the underground maintenance chamber. By 6:20 a.m., only 2 bodies had been recovered. The math didn't lie. Airport Director Evelyn Hart, flanked by her security chief and 2 officers from Michigan State Police, stared hard at the evidence. If the third person left that hatch, our camera network should have picked them up. Sergeant Dwyer stood near the back, Echo calmly at his heel. Unless they knew how to avoid them, Or used a route we didn't know existed. Perez added, that tunnel wasn't on any map. If someone hid themselves in that network, knew the ins and outs, we're talking insider knowledge, ex-military, contractor, or someone who worked construction here in the early 90s. The room went silent again. Echo, alert as always, turned his head slowly to the glass door behind them before anyone else heard the footsteps. There it was again, that same eerie instinct. Dwyer stepped into the hallway as an airport custodian was escorted in by security. The man was in his 60s, wearing a reflective vest and shaking slightly. Y'all wanted to talk to anyone who worked the old signal tower? Hart nodded. Go on. I didn't say anything at first because, well, I didn't think it meant anything, the man stammered. Bum. But last week I saw a guy come out of the old tower around 2 in the morning. I figured he was maintenance or one of them private contractors. Carried a small duffel and was limping. You didn't report it? Didn't seem suspicious. Lotta third-party folks been in and out lately since we started that upgrade project. Did you get a look at him? Dwyer asked. The custodian nodded slowly. Couldn't see his face, but he had a scar long right across his neck, like a rope burn or something. Perez's eyes narrowed. That's no civilian. The girl Addie Blake was still unconscious at Lansing Medical Center, hooked to fluids and antibiotics. Severe dehydration, exposure to pneumonia. The attending nurse said she'd pulled through the worst, thanks to quick extraction. Her brother Cameron sat alone in an interview room. Dwyer watched through the one-way glass. The boy wasn't aggressive, just protective. He refused to talk about the third person. All he said was, he helped us, but he's not like you. He doesn't trust anyone. Echo sat beside Dwyer, eyes locked on the boy. You think he's lying? Perez asked. I think he's scared, Dwyer replied. Behind them, the radio crackled. Patrol Unit 5 to command, we've got something odd. Echo's signal tower. There's a secondary crawl access just west of it. Looks like it's been welded shut from the inside. They all paused. It's hot, fresh weld. Someone was just here. 30 minutes later, Dwyer and Echo stood before the sealed access door. The fresh weld shimmered under the beam of a flashlight. Whoever had done it had tools, skill, and a reason to seal themselves in, or others out. Echo sniffed at the base, then sat, tail still, chest out, focused. The tension returned. Perez whispered, You think someone's still inside? Dwyer looked at Echo, then at the weld. Yes. Back in the control room, infrared scans showed no heat signatures. Whoever had been inside had either left or had found a way to hide their presence. Security teams fanned out across the airport, but the area between hangars and the old control block held countless blind spots, legacy zones unmonitored since funding cuts had reduced surveillance. And then the breakthrough came not from a camera or an agent, but from Echo. As they patrolled the southern service corridor near Hangar 14, Echo halted. His nose brushed a utility grate just slightly ajar. Dwyer crouched, shined his light inside. A set of footprints, all muddy, barely dried, leading into the grate. The tunnel system wasn't on any map, at least not one they'd accessed yet. With bolt cutters and backup, the team descended. The passage sloped downward into what used to be a storm drain overflow system, a leftover from when the airport was first built in the 1960s, and it was clear someone had repurposed it. Inside were markers, chalk signs, trails, even discarded wrappers from ration bars military units used. And then as they rounded a bend, Dwyer saw the unmistakable sign, a duffel bag, and an empty holster. Next to it, scratched into the cement wall, was a single word, sorry, and below it, a drawing, rough, childlike but unmistakable, a German shepherd with a star on his vest. Perez's voice cracked. He drew Echo. Dwyer looked down. Echo just stared, quietly. This man, whoever he was, hadn't just been watching, he'd been following, not to attack, not to harm, to protect. The forensic team later recovered surveillance from a decommissioned terminal parking structure, footage stored locally on an old tape backup system that had never been migrated to the cloud. It showed the third figure slipping away from the hatch at 5:07 a.m. limping, wearing gloves, carrying nothing. He didn't run, he didn't panic. He vanished into the darkness beyond the south fence line toward the woods. No one saw him again. That evening, Dwyer sat beside Addie's hospital bed. The girl had woken briefly, said only 2 words, jog, saved, not cop, not officer, not even brother, just the dog. And in her hand, clasped even in sleep, was a tiny silver pendant in the shape of a star, one that wasn't hers. The control tower's last update that night documented all runways secured, all units accounted for, and patrols resumed. But the closing note added by the watch commander at 23:59 simply read, K9 Unit Echo initiated runway breach at 6:14. Discovery led to 2 civilian lives saved. Unknown third party still unaccounted for. Status hero. The official investigation remained open, but days passed with no sign of the third man, the figure with the scar, the limp, and the military-grade awareness of the airfield's forgotten infrastructure. Lansing Regional brought in federal security consultants. Engineers mapped the entire underground drainage system. Every hatch, grate, and tunnel was cataloged. Nothing. But the damage and the miracle had already taken root. 2 lives were saved. 1 man disappeared. And a dog had changed everything. Sergeant Dwyer stood again at the sealed hatch near the old signal tower. Snow dusted the surface. Time had started to cover the trail. Echo sat beside him, calm but alert. The dog hadn't forgotten. Every time they patrolled this quadrant, he'd pause, still scanning, still waiting. Inside Lansing Medical Center, Addie Blake now sat upright in bed, cheeks regaining color, her voice stronger each day. Her brother Cameron remained in the custody of protective services, though prosecutors agreed not to pursue charges. His only crime had been trying to keep his sister alive. He was just a scared teen, guided by instinct and possibly a ghost. Dwyer sat with them when allowed. Echo too. Addie didn't talk much, but the girl never stopped watching the dog. Once, she whispered to Dwyer when her brother had stepped away, he came at night, the man, he'd never speak, just left food. Blankets, he'd pet Echo if he thought no one saw. Dwyer's heart slowed. You saw him near Echo. She nodded. Echo never barked, just watched him, like he knew him. That stopped Dwyer cold. Echo wasn't the kind of dog who trusted easily. If he let someone close enough to pet him without command, it meant something. A week later, the engineering team confirmed what many feared: the tunnel network beneath the airfield was much more extensive than recorded. It had been built during the Cold War era, part of an emergency communications plan for military use, forgotten over time, left out of modern digital maps. But someone remembered, someone had lived in them, and left no trace. Inside a worn manila folder on Dwyer's desk sat the few clues they'd collected. A field ration wrapper from 2002, a patch of thermal padding pulled from the cot frame, and a copy of a security photo from 4 years ago, grainy, low resolution, time-stamped from a cargo hangar breach that was dismissed at the time as a glitch. The man in the photo had a scar across his throat, same as the custodian described, same as Addie whispered. Federal agencies now suspected he was ex-Special Forces, possibly declared dead years ago, a ghost with no name, hiding in systems no one remembered existed. But none of that made it official. Only one being had confirmed him. And that being didn't wear a badge. A month passed. Dwyer sat with his unit during the evening shift, finalizing patrol reports. Snow fell lightly outside. Echo rested at his side, calm but attentive. Then, an officer from front security entered with a small package. Came in through General Mail. No return address. The label just said, to Echo K9 Unit Lansing Regional Airport. Confused, Dwyer opened it carefully. Inside was a box, handcrafted, smooth wood. Inside, 2 items rested in silence. A military service medal, a combat action ribbon, a photo of Echo standing on the tarmac at dawn looking toward the horizon, caught in perfect profile. There was a note written in block letters. He knew, before any of you did. Take care of him. He's more than a dog. No name, no signature. But Dwyer didn't need one. That night, Dwyer visited the runway just before shift's end. The snow was thick again, silent, peaceful. He removed Echo's vest, let him walk free. The dog circled once, then stood at the spot he'd once dashed across where it all started. The wind picked up gently, brushing snow over old tire tracks. Echo stood still, watching, listening, and then, without a sound, his head turned, not toward any vehicle or radio or light, but toward the darkness at the fence line. Dwyer followed his gaze. No movement, no figure, just a feeling. Still, Dwyer spoke, knowing somehow that someone was there. Thank you for saving them, for trusting him. Echo didn't move, just kept watching. Then, slowly, the wind died down, and the dog turned back, walked toward the patrol car, and jumped in without command, duty complete. In the years that followed, Echo became a legend at Lansing Regional. He received honors, news segments, even a local children's book titled Echo and the Runway Secret. But none of that changed him. To Echo, it was always simple. Someone was in trouble. He followed his instinct. He found the truth. He saved lives. Because sometimes the greatest heroes don't need medals or recognition. They just need trust and 4 legs. Don't miss the next time a dog like Echo changes everything. Stories like this drop every day. Hit subscribe and like, so you're always the first to know what most people only hear about days later.